I have a confession to make. Hello, I'm Pam Duthie, and I'm a really clumsy person. People are commenting all the time about my danger felting, where I'm felting up in the air rather than down on a felting cushion, and asking if this is really dangerous and if this is possibly the best way I should be showing to teach people. So I just want to talk about safety in needle felting. Hey, I'm Pam Duthie, and I'm here to help you craft your career with creative marketing and artistic inspiration. And it's a Wednesday, so it's another tips, tricks, techniques and supplies review day. So if that's something you're interested in, don't forget, come back every Wednesday. So in needle felting, we do use a needle. It's part of the name of the game. And yeah, it's a sharp needle. So obviously so many people's fear is stabbing yourself. Is it safe? Am I going to hurt myself? Now firstly, obviously any craft that's involving a needle is not going to be suitable for small children. So make sure and be careful and assess the age and the ability of anyone that is wanting to start needle felting with you. And yes, occasionally, like twice in a decade, I've heard of people actually really kind of hurting themselves by stabbing the needle in and getting a fair-sized injury, but that's twice in a decade. So in the main, most of us felters are going to stab our fingers. It's going to happen, but does a scrapbooker never get a paper cut? There's going to be danger in everything we try, but in the main, it's fairly limited danger. Now people ask if, when holding my sculptures up in the air, if this is not a more dangerous way of felting. Now, as I said at the beginning, I am a really clumsy person. Seriously, if there's nothing to trip over, I'll just trip over myself. If there was a world championship for being clumsy, I would trip on the stairs on the way in and not even be able to enter the venue. So if anyone was going to injure themselves a whole lot, it was going to be me, and mainly, I still have 10 fingers and toes. I know a lot of people use a felting cushion or a stabbing surface to stab down onto, and they feel this saves them from stabs, and for some people it will, but in my opinion, in my experience, what I've found is as a species, we're much more aware of where our fingertips are. We have a lot of nerve endings in our fingertips. We know where they are in the planet, whereas the tops of our fingers we're not so aware of. So it's actually, for me, it's easier to stab into the gap between my fingers because I know where that is. I can slide the needle in like that, rather than holding something down on a surface and stabbing down into it. That way, for me, I was going to cause a whole lot more injuries. And also, if you're just holding lightly, the needle might brush against your finger, but it's not actually going to do any damage. The actual barbs on the side of the needle don't do anything. It's just the tip. And if you're not holding with a death grip and felting really stabbing into an item, which you don't have to because, you know, the fibres are fairly soft, so you don't have to be death gripping your needle. So if you're just holding it gently and it does touch your finger, then you just slide. The needle just slides out in your fingers and you don't end up hurting yourself. Now you can get leather cots to use on your fingertips. For me, again, this just makes me more clumsy and I'm more likely for the needle to stick in to the finger cots. Now, I'm not going to say that I don't stab myself. My fingers do constantly have little tiny nicks in them. That's just the danger of felting. A glass blower has calluses from where they've caught themselves every now and again with hot glass. It happens, but don't fear it so much. Do whatever you're most comfortable with. Now, another reason I actually find felting up in the air like this, and I know I'm freaking people out by felting without even looking, but this is how simple it becomes. I know where my fingers are in the world. Famous last words, I'm probably just about to stab myself. But you can see it's fairly simple to do this. And as opposed to being hunched over a cushion on a table that's probably not at the best ergonomic height, if you're felting away, and it's long term, most projects are going to take several hours, if not days and weeks. So if you're hunched over for several hours, days or weeks, then this can cause you a whole load of problems. Whereas if I can just sit up, watch the telly like I would normally do and felt away, I'm in a much more ergonomic position. Now, I would like to draw your attention to my friend Dr. Sten's video. And it really switched on a light for me about needle felting. to make sure that you're safe, that you're not injuring yourself. Now, I've spoke about before how this little needle holder has actually reduced my repetitive strain injury, I believe it was, in my hand. I used to, when I had lots of orders, there were times where I would have to use a wrist guard, a wrist brace, for all the times when I wasn't felting because I just got into so much pain. And that's not happened since using this. So that totally makes sense, that just having something larger to hold on to rather than your hands all tightly clenched up is making things a bit better. Also, people have talked a lot about making sure your elbows are tucked in rather than moving everything, your arm, your hand, everything. If you tuck your elbows in, keep your elbows still, then this is an easier motion. It's less stressful. Your wrist might take a brunt, but you're not going to be getting tennis elbow from doing this. But from Dr. Sten's video, what he's talking about, and it totally makes sense, we talk about stretching, but how often do we really think of doing it? You want to, if you're hunched over something for a long time, do the opposite. Lean back, stretch up like this. Once every hour or so, make sure and stop and stretch. And this works for our hands too. So if you've been felting with your hands closed, working on fine detail, once every hour, more if necessary, just stop, stretch your hands out. Make sure they can get that full range of motion. Relax them. Just a few seconds of a stretch. It makes so much difference. So I hope this helps you. I don't believe felting in the air is any more dangerous than felting on a stabbing cushion. And if you're a learner, just go with what feels right for you. It's going to be a learning curve anyway till you get the feel of how your needles work. But don't fear that there's going to be a whole lot of injuries because we're using a sharp needle. It's really not as dangerous as that. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Don't forget, I'm Pam Duthie. If you enjoyed this, click on my wee face to subscribe. Come back every Wednesday for similar tips and tricks, and check out the other videos that YouTube wants you to watch. Thank you so much for joining me. See you next time.